Okay.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. How
Thanks
you
for
doing?
coming in and joining our American Sake Association Sunday Sake Social. For any new people out there or anyone who I haven't had the opportunity to meet, my name is Chris Johnson, also known as the Sake Ninja. A big fan of sake, and I've been working with the product for a very long time, and super happy to be able to share sake with all of you tonight and with as many people as we can. Jesse, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Jesse Matsuoka. I'm a restaurateur out here in Sag Harbor, New York, and I'm one of the directors of the American Sake Association. Just excited to be here with you tonight, hosting with Masumi, and really excited to be able to kind of do this walkthrough and see the inside scoop of how they make sake. Yeah, wonderful. I'm going to pass it on to Michelle.
Hi, everyone. I'm here in Brooklyn, and I've worked at Japanese restaurants, managed Japanese restaurants, love to drink sake, and have been helping out with the American Sake Association since everything kind of got off the ground, and we're happy that we can do this and show you Masumi tonight. I've actually been there in person and can't wait to go back.
All right. So as we're gaining more people into our area, I'm going to do a little housekeeping per se and talk about a few things that we want you to remember for our webinar tonight. Please click on the chat section to open the chat window, and then select panelists and attendees so you can share your messages, any quick thoughts or hellos. Let us know what you're drinking in the chat, and then click on the Q&A to open the Q&A panel and type any questions you may have specifically for Nasutoji or Keith in that area, and we will sort through them and hopefully be able to get to those questions at the end of the tour. If you would like to ask that question or have a comment in person, would ask you to raise your hand. You can click raise your hand, and that would let us know that you want to join us on camera and not just stay in the background. And at the end of the webinar, you'll see a link to a survey. And if you have time, please fill it out and let us know your feedback. But also in that survey is the link to a very important component that Michelle will be talking about in a minute. But next to Jesse.
Awesome. So I just want to touch a little bit on, we hope that you enjoy today's event, and to learn a little bit more about coming events. We have our newsletter, we have our social media posts. So I would love if you would all visit AmericanSakeAssociation.org, which is our homepage. And you can also go on Instagram, Facebook, and everything's at American Sake Association. All right.
And if this is your first time joining us and you want to know a little bit more about American Sake Association, we are a nonprofit 501c3.
Oh, I think we're losing Michelle a little bit.
Events like this. Oh, am I still there?
Yep, you're back. You're back. Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that. But we promote drinking more sake through education, events like this, and hopefully sometime soon, events in person.
Yeah. And then finally, one of the fun parts about the events that we do talk about a lot of things, and we have a lot of attendees. You won't see that many attendees on the video portion, but you get to see everyone in our Nijikai, which is our after party. And that after party will take place at 9 p.m. We have a couple of links. We'll put the link in the chat. We'll put the link in the survey after the event. And then there'll also be a couple other posts here and there. We'll plug in those Nijikai Zoom attendee numbers, so you can plug in, and then we can do multiple kanpais. We're only 4 minutes in, but why not do a kanpai right now to get things going? So here we go.
I'm not afraid to join you.
Kanpai.
Kanpai. Yeah, there's going to be many kanpais in the Nijikai, and it's quite fun. So please show up to that, because it's just a good old time.
Perfect. So Michelle, we have a quick little question for people. Could you
Yeah.
let everybody know what's going to happen?
So yeah, earlier I mentioned that I had the fortunate luck of being able to visit Masumi a few years ago, and we're going to do our first poll. And the question is, have you ever visited a sake brewery in Japan? So basically yes or no. We'll let that go for a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And CJ, I'm gonna ask you a question. Have you ever visited a brewery in Japan?
Funnily enough, I have visited quite a few breweries in Japan. There have been a couple trips that were breweries only, and I've been lucky enough to see upwards of, I think I'm at 20 breweries now that I've been able to visit and
Nice.
do tours, which is pretty exciting. It's a really cool opportunity. And one of those breweries that I got to visit was actually the one that we're going to be touring a little bit later today, which is Masumi, which Michelle just mentioned she had visited. Now, Jesse, have you been to a brewery?
Yes, yes. I've had the honor of visiting many breweries, from your big mega places to what I feel is very cool is just walking the streets of Japan and then finding a brewery. And it's run by a mom and pop. They're just doing everything themselves. And it's so beautiful. I mean, there's so much history, there's so much to learn. There's things that you just really can't even find on the internet or in books, that you just have to physically go there. And we hope to be able to bring you some knowledge from the Nastoji of Masumi and Keith Cunningham today that you just can't find anywhere. You know, you have to kind of see it and feel it and truly enjoy it. And we can see that through our Zoom webinar today.
And it seems most people have answered already for the poll, and 70% have already been to a brewery.
Wow. All right. That's a big percentage,
Yeah,
but you know what? 30% that have not, I think their minds are going to be blown here. And for those that have, you know, did they visit Masumi or was it somewhere else? We hope that, you know, they're really going to be, you know, wowed by today's presentation.
I think it'll be a lot of fun. It is a great way to see what happens in a brewery. We get to enjoy these wonderful beverages that Jesse just said come by with, and we all enjoyed. But to see what goes in to make this beautiful juice is really important. So as I had mentioned before, we have a really great opportunity with this tour of Masumi. We have Keith Norum, and who's worked with Masumi for a very long time, and he's going to jump on and introduce himself in a minute. And then we also have Nasu Toji, who is the brewer, and this is a great thing to have them be a part and be able to actually talk to a brewer. So we're going to bring Keith on and have him say hello and welcome to our Masumi Sake Brewery tour.
Yeah, this is going to be quite fun.
No, I can't wait.
All right. Yes. I see him. I see
Keith.
Yep, and I see Nastoji.
Hi guys, we can see you now.
Hi, boss.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, so to all of you guys, everybody attending, thank you so much for taking the time to attend. Yeah, my name is Keith Norum. I take care of international sales for Masumi, and
Hi, I'm Kenji Nas, master brewer in Masumi.
Wow.
we coming through okay?
Yeah, you're great. It's perfect.
Fantastic. Well, I know some of you who are attending have already seen sake breweries, and some of you have even come to Masumi before, so this will be a little bit of a revise for you, but I know there's some people who don't have much yet experience with sake, so we're going to take this tour kind of from the beginner's perspective and cover just the basics. And then later in the Q&A, if you want to send some real zingers to Nasatoji, send some technical stuff, we'll be happy to take your questions as well.
Nice.
Awesome.
And I know that we're kind of under time constraints, so we're going to jump right in. We have a bit of a presentation to start with just to give you some background on Masumi, and then I'll be taking you through the whole brewery. Nasa-san is not going to join me on that part because, again, we have to run through it pretty quickly. So he's going to meet up for the Q&A session after the brewery tour. Here we go. Okay, everybody have that first slide then. So I just wanted to point out, Masumi is our brand. And this is your first bit of Japanese that you'll always be able to read and remember. So those two characters say Masumi. That's our brand. And Masumi is just a brand. It's not the name of the company. The company name is the family name. So Masumi has been made by the Miyasaka family since 1662, which is a very long time indeed. Next slide, I'd like to introduce the current members of the family. So first we have the big guy in the middle. Hopefully. Yeah, that's Naotaka. He's the current president. And then next to him is his son, Katsuhiko. And he's aspiring to be president someday. And then over there, you have this lovely person. That's Kumi. And she's the real boss. Kumi is married to Naotaka. And she's Katsuhiko's mother. So you know where the power really is in the family. Now that you know who we are, I want to show you where we are in Japan. It's really important because we're a regional sake maker. Where we are informs the whole character and the policy, the way of thinking about sake for us. Now this big picture of all of Japan, you can see a little red star right smack dab in the middle of Japan. That's where we are in Nagano Prefecture, a little place called Suwa. We'll zoom that up now. And yeah, that's a little bit closer zoom. You can see over on the right, you see Tokyo. That's where most people fly into. They fly into Tokyo and then it's one train, 2 hours, straight up. Tokyo's on the ocean, so it's zero sea level. And then you go up about, you get to 6,000 up to almost 9,000 feet in elevation in just 2 hours. So it's an ear-popping train ride. The first thing you see out the window is Mount Fuji, which is the highest mountain in Japan. You move a little further inland and you see wonderful Alps mountains. These are the Southern Alps. And then finally, as you get closer to Suwa, you see a beautiful range on the right side called the Eight Peaks Range. That's Yatsugatake. Now I should mention that Nagano, for these reasons, for all of these mountains, Nagano was the home of the 1998 Winter Olympic Games. So really all you need to remember is sake, Winter Olympics, and probably they're going to give you some Masumi. Now here's a shot from Suwa, so you can see there's Mount Fuji right in the center. Then over there on the right, you're going to see the Southern Alps. And then on the left, you'll see the Eight Peaks. And down below that beautiful body of water is Lake Suwa. And then just a little bit to the left of the lake, you see our original old kura. That's Suwa Kura. Again, that's the one from 1662. And finally, where we are now is up in the Southern Alps mountains. That's Fujimi Kura. So that's where we're going to be showing you the kura itself. A little bit background. Where did our brand name come from? It has a special story to it. So the name Masumi, the brand, came from this ancient treasure. It's about 1,100 years old, and it's called Masumi no Kagami. And this treasure is actually located in the next slide. It's located in our local Shinto shrine. It's called the Suwa Taisha Shrine. And as you know, the Shinto religion uses sake for a lot of rituals. And the Miyasaka family's been providing sake for hundreds of years to this shrine. So they gave us the right to use the name Masumi, the name of their treasure. And you can see there's a sake barrel there on the left. That's actually a Masumi sake barrel right there in the middle of Suwa Taisha to show the connection between us. Now let's have a look at that treasure again. So basically, Masumi no Kagami, the Kagami part means mirror. So that's an ancient mirror made of bronze. And the Masumi part also has a meaning, means completely transparent in the sense of totally honest, totally true. So our brand name means the mirror of truth. That's a pretty good name for a sake brand, don't you think? Especially when you drink a little bit, you start telling the truth. Nasan still with us. There's one other thing, kind of a famous thing about Masumi. If you go to the next slide, this is the last thing that you have to remember right now. There's this plaque inside the brewery. You see, it's 1946 and a lot of Japanese. So if you click it, you can get the English part of it there. This commemorates a yeast. Yes, a yeast, a microbe. So that microbe was so important that we actually made a plaque and put it in our brewery. back in 1946, the Brewing Association of Japan came to Masumi because we had been working with a native yeast here that was really, really a great fermenter. And they had a program to identify excellent yeast. Then they put numbers on them and distribute them to all sake makers to improve the quality of sake. So number 7 yeast was Masumi's yeast. Everybody in the sake world kind of identifies number 7 with Masumi. And even now, that was like over 70 years ago, even now, number 7 yeast is still the workhorse of the industry. It's the most commonly used sake yeast in the world. So there you go. I'm going to say bye to Nasan now. He'll be back for Q&A, and let's take a look in the brewery. Follow me, guys. Now, I'm going to kind of walk backwards and try to show you at the same time. If things get too dodgy, I'm going to turn the camera around, but I think we'll do okay. What I'm doing now is I'm walking toward the back of the building because back there is where we have a rice polishing plant. Rice polishing is the first step in making sake. And it's something that most breweries really can't do on their own because the rice polishing equipment is very expensive, very difficult to maintain. Masumi is it is the largest brewer in Nagano Prefecture, although it's not a very big brewery overall in Japan. So we had the good fortune to be able to create our own rice polishing plant. Here it is. Well, basically it's outside of a building, but during the season, what you're going to have here is a bunch of trucks unloading 1-ton bags of brown rice that are ready for polishing. We're a local sake maker, so we try to use local rice as much as possible. About 93% of what we make is made with Nagano rice. It's all sake rice. And what we don't do, we don't grow our own rice. We always get it from either the agricultural co-op or from individual farmers. So we're not rice farmers ourselves. Let's have a look inside and have a look at the rice polishing plant. Here we go.
Awesome. Exciting.
Yes. Please be careful. Try not to trip.
Yeah.
Woo woo. Okay. Exactly. So wow, we're in the building. It's a little disorienting, isn't it? Especially for me. Okay. So this is in the rice polishing plant. As you can see, it's a pretty darn big building. All right. And really quickly, the flow is the rice comes in on this side. It's brown rice and it's pretty clean, but we need to clean it especially well. We need to make sure there's no metal, like broken screws and bolts. Anything metal is going to mess up the polishers. So first thing we do on this side is we clean all the rice really well. Then we move it over to this side of the room, and this is where it's actually polished. Let's take a closer look at the polishing itself. We're going to move over here. I'm going to turn this around. I think it'll probably be easier if I switch my camera. So I'm going to do the switcher.
Oh, seems like we're having some technical difficulties over here, Keith.
I think this is where the Wi-Fi is a little spotty.
Yeah.
Tanks are where the brown rice comes in, and then the rice flows housing.
Sorry, Keith, if you can hear us. You're
a little bit.
There we go.
Okay, back, perfect.
You're back now.
Broken. A little bit. Okay, I'll talk more slowly. So again, the rice goes around these inside the green housing, and that's where it actually gets polished. And what's polishing that is these beautiful polishing stones. So these things are actually the stones that are inside of that polishing unit. Mm-hmm. Then the rice goes down, gets caught by a conveyor, and goes all the way back to the top. So it's a cycle. The rice continues to move up to the top and then come through again and again and again. It could take a couple of days. It could take 5 hours. It could take 60 hours to get to a daiginjo polishing of, say, 40% remaining or 35% remaining. Okay, so there you go. I'm going to give you a little picture of the before and after so you have a better idea. So we start out right here. This is brown rice. This is Yamada Nishiki. It's not Nagano. Here you've got some hitogokochi. This is Nagano rice. So brown rice, obviously, after polishing. For example, this one, the hitogokochi, this is at 55. Is that sort of in focus? Is okay?
Yep, we're looking good.
So we polish from, that's 100%, think of it, 55, that number is always the number remaining of the rice. It's not what we took away, it's what we left. Now, 55% remaining means we polished away a lot of that rice. The one thing that, oh, I'll turn myself around here. Turn myself around here, okay. The reason we polish so much is so that we can get a better balance in the resulting sake. And that's because there's two main ingredients in rice. Starch, which we all know turns to sugar and then becomes alcohol and all kinds of great fruity aromas, but it also has protein. Protein doesn't turn to alcohol, it turns to acids and amino acids. Also very good for your body, but unfortunately amino acids are very strong in flavor, very bitter, can be astringent. So what you want to do is reduce the level of protein, reduce the level of amino acids to get a better balance between the savory and acidic elements and the sweet and fruity aromas. So polishing allows us to achieve that. Now, a lot of people ask what happens, because when you polish this much, you basically end up with a lot of flour. That's all rice flour. Don't worry, folks, we don't waste anything. The rice flour is very valuable to the local farmers. It's great for pickling, it's great for chicken feed. So all of the brown rice flour goes back to the farming community. The word goes to brokers who use it to make anything with rice flour. You know that Japan has a lot of these lovely rice confections, crackers to the brokers. So none of it's wasted. Now we're wasting time, so I'm going to move over here to the washing area. And I might have to change Wi-Fi. I didn't realize that the signal would be that tricky out there. How are we doing?
You're in and out, but yeah, while you're walking, we can probably move over to some of those slides so we have a little bit of time. We're good. We're doing good on time here. So.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Now, how about now? Is it okay? I can switch to Wi-Fi now if you like, or we're okay?
You're good.
Okay. Well, I wanted to talk about washing and soaking, and I want to kind of talk about them together. Washing is obvious. You have to wash the rice after you polish it because you want to take away that protein again. And if you leave the rice flour on the rice, it's going to have too much protein. We still good? Audio's good? Okay.
A little spotty.
Yeah, don't go too far away from where you are.
Okay, let's try this. Yeah. Tell you what, I'm going to move to the inside Wi-Fi. If you want to show the washing pictures a bit of the old style way to do it while I switch, okay? And this should just take a minute.
Sounds good. Sounds good. We'll see you back in a moment. So as we get a little bit of help to switch over, we're going to be kind of reviewing some of these pictures. So this is at Masumi Brewery. And what you're seeing here is the hand washing of the rice. You actually can see somebody in the back with a timer. That is actually because they perfect the washing down to the second, knowing that the saturation of water can change moment to moment. So they do time this down to the seconds, whereas in prior times before even timers, they actually sung songs that they knew how long it took to get a certain amount of time, which is very cool.
Super amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Keith's back.
Washing hands.
Oh, I'm back. Hi, guys.
All right.
Oh, yay.
Hopefully that will work better now. Now, as Jesse explained so brilliantly there, and as you saw the slide, you know that the old days you had a bunch of people, you basically had a little rice washer, and you had a colander, a strainer, and you had a bucket of water, right? And that took a lot of effort and a lot of time, and it took everybody in the brewery, all hands on deck. What we do now, we have this lovely, fantastic piece of equipment. It's a washer and soaker together. And it washes, then soaks, then deposits it out for the next step with only one person running it. So it's a beautiful piece of technology that applies well to our attempt to make premium sake. We don't want to try to wash and polish a big tank of rice all at once. For consistency, you want small batches. And this thing allows us to do single batches, but 5 at a time with one operator. And it actually increases the consistency of the soaking. Soaking is the most important thing. Washing is important, but soaking is key. Because the next step after this is going to be steaming. And as everybody who's ever made a pot of rice wrong knows, If you mess up the steaming, you've messed it up. So we want to get that soaking perfect. And this machine is one of those pieces that helps us do that.
Mhm.
Okay. Now what I'm going to do is move inside the brewery, because what happens after that rice comes out of this fancy machine, we get these carts that have wheels. We roll the cart into our rice elevator, and we go upstairs. And upstairs is where the steamer is. So I'm going to head up there. I'll probably go offline for a sec to get up to the steamer, and then see you back up there, okay?
All right. We'll see you in a moment. So who can say they've seen a rice elevator before, right? Because I mean, when you're cool enough to have a rice elevator, I mean, you've made it. Right?
I was pretty proud when I moved into an apartment in New York City that had just a regular elevator. I was like, I'm moving on up. They have an elevator.
I'm waiting for my elevator still.
Kind of amazing.
Oh, I love it. Somebody just said from rice to riches.
Nice.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah, rice. The technology and certain things, the lifting, like before an elevator existed, someone used to have to carry that on their back, right? And you'd have to, and there's still lots of breweries that still transport rice in that way, on the way to the steamer and stuff. So it's pretty incredible that some of these technologies have lessened the, sake brewing is still extremely hard work even when you have elevators, but it makes it a little bit nicer that no one has to carry that upstairs anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so used to dumbwaiters in restaurants, and to imagine how many tons of rice that they're moving around. What I've seen in other locations is they use these air vents that shoot the rice between rooms, which is a very, very cool operation. My first time seeing it in one of these breweries, I was just blown away by all this rice. That in Japan they have this saying of kaizen, the constant to improve on something, no matter how good it works. But they keep on coming up with very cool ways to create the efficiencies within the sake world. And as you can see, they've come up with their sake elevator.
And Keith,
very
looks
cool.
like Keith is
Keith is back.
I'm back. Okay,
is that
good.
Keith? I don't know.
Yes,
got a new hat
the
on.
hat.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. You can't go in the brewery if you don't have a hat on.
Oh yes, okay.
Even now, I should mention that we're not actually making sake right now. We're a seasonal brewer, and our season finished right at the end of April. So we're not making any sake now, but still, protocol is protocol. Got to have the hat on.
Yep.
And behind me, I'm up on the second floor. The boxes that went in the elevator come out here. And what we do with that rice is we roll it along, and we have these net bags. And we put the rice in the net bags, and then we load it into these big circular steamers. We call them koshiki. We have 2 koshiki, so the net bags of rice go in there. These koshiki work really well. We can control the steaming very well to get a dry steam. And you can put several layers at one time. So if you want to do 3 or 4 different types of rice, you can steam all together in separate net bags, all laid in together. So it's about 50 minutes, a little less than an hour. Your steaming's done. Then what you do, notice up on the ceiling, you've got a kind of winch system. That winch is key because it allows us to winch those net bags out of the steamer and then over here to the cooler. So that unit, basically, you put the rice in here and it conveys the rice through there and is cooled as it's moving through. The rice has to be in the mid-20s centigrade, which is about 70, 75 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's any hotter than that, you're going to start to kill the microbes that you need. So you got to cool it down to get it ready for the next steps. So there you go. That's the steaming part. Very quickly, we're going to move over to what happens after steaming. Rice comes through, comes out. Where am I? Oh, I'm just completely, oh God, it's the opposite way. Boy, am I confused. So once it comes out, we get more of these boxes with wheels. Rice goes in a box, and then we wheel it. Now, the rice can go all kinds of places. Basically, there's 2 things you want to think about steamed rice. steam rice that goes into each of the different fermentation vats, straight as steam rice, straight in she goes. The second type is koji rice. In other words, you take the rice and you cultivate a koji mold on it in order to get your saccharification to change the starch to sugar. 20% of the steam rice we make goes into koji, 80% goes straight as steam rice. Let's have a look at the koji because it's super key to making sake. Follow me. From the steamer, we run over here. Try the backwards run here. Look at that.
Oh, please be careful.
Danger, danger.
Danger.
And as we get close to this window, you can kind of see it's a big room. It's got beautiful wooden paneling. I'm going to open the door. I think they'll let me do that today. So there you go. This is our main koji room. It's called a koji muro, which kind of means room. It's wooden paneled. It is a kind of sauna for rice. It's a sauna for microbes. We want to keep this area at somewhere between 78 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit or somewhere up in the 30s centigrade. And that's because what we're doing is we're growing a little mold, a koji on it. It's called Aspergillus oryzae most of the time. And that mold likes heat. So we make it nice and hot like a sauna. We work with it for 2 days and then it's ready. It's done its job, which again is to turn starch to sugar. After that, you got yeast, the other microbe, and it eats the sugar and you get all kinds of fun out of that. So that's the koji. I think, where to go? Oh, there we go. Real quick look. Oh, I'm gonna turn this around. I think that's probably easier. So before, that's the koji. Wow. It's like spores. It's a kind of fungus, so it makes spores. You get those spores and you can sprinkle those spores right onto some steamed rice in there and the spores start to work and they start to create the koji. The mold goes all into the rice and makes the enzyme that takes starch to sugar. This is an example after you're finished. So it's rice that's had that koji mold grown on it and you can tell it's quite white. It almost looks like a camembert cheese or something. It becomes a beautiful white sheen on it.
We have a really cool question over here from Cohen. Let me just pull it up. Koji rooms always have such low ceilings. Is that to keep the room condensed like a sauna?
Actually, that's exactly right. What's most important in the koji room is temperature and humidity control. And it's a lot easier to do that with a low ceiling. It means you get very quick effect. If you decide you want to move the temperature down, if you have a low ceiling, you can get that temperature to move down pretty quickly. If you have a high ceiling, as we all know, all of us who made the mistake of building a house that has a second and third floor open, the heating bill is crazy and it takes a long time to get things to change. So yeah, that's why we have the low ceiling in there. It's a great question.
Very good.
Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you out of the big koji room and we're going to go into the little koji room. Wow, look at that. We have 2 koji rooms because sometimes we want to make really specialized koji. We want a smaller space to work in because, again, small spaces means you have more control over temperature and humidity. When we do the really fancy koji, we have some great slides of the fancy koji making. So you'll see that in a sec after I do Wi-Fi change. But this is where we do that sort of more delicate, more focused koji making in this room. Okay. How are we doing for time, Jess?
We're doing all right. We're doing all right. Yeah, keep it going.
All righty. Here we go. I'm gonna, I think I'll go out the way I came in.
Yeah, maybe we can throw in a couple questions while you're walking around.
Please.
From Aya-san, when did Miyasaka start exporting their sake to the U.S.?
Oh, so the question is, when did Miyasaka Brewing Company start exporting to the U.S.?
That's correct.
I'm going to turn myself around here. It's amazing how long ago. Late 80s, late 1980s.
Wow.
So that's a long time ago. Now, that was with the very first sort of export company that wanted to crank up sake export. And we happened to be a member of their distribution network. And they said, hey, you guys want to send some sake to America? And so they said, okay. So it's the 1980s, late 1980s is when it started. And now
Very
actually
cool.
we've moved to the next step. We had koji, right?
Mhm.
Once you've got that koji ready, you have all the ingredients you need to start fermenting, right? You've got steam rice, you've got water, you've got koji rice, and then of course you've got your yeast. The way to start fermentation for any sake really, you need to start small. And if you want to go from small to big, what you want to do is do it in stages. So we always start with what's called a shubo. I'll show you that right here. That character, which is one you all know, that's the character for sake, which we can also say shu. This character is super important. This character is the character for mother. And that's the character for room. So we have here sake's mother's room. That's where it all starts. In the room today, it's a laundry room because we're not making sake. We're basically drying here. Again, not just mothers have to do the laundry. Boys, you guys have to get into the laundry.
Good one, Keith.
Alrighty.
Well done, Keith.
Good
Well done.
one.
Now, these tanks, these little tanks are normally what fills that room.
Mhm.
And into these tanks, we put all of the ingredients I just mentioned and that you guys will quiz everybody on after I go off Wi-Fi. You get those ingredients going. For us, it takes about 10 days to make this mother of all sake, the shubo. Then we're ready to move it to the next stage. We're basically going to grow that mash, make it bigger and bigger, so you get more sake to drink. To do that, we move to a bigger room. It's called the moromi room, or the hako tanka room. To get there, we have to go say hi to the gods. That's your god shelf. All breweries have a shelf just for the gods to sit, make sure everything's working out all right. We always give the gods lots of sake in the morning, like to make sure we all get to work. And in we go. Wow. So what we see here is the main mash tank room, and it's a completely empty big space. It's completely empty because actually what we're seeing here is just the very top of each mash tank. I'm going to show you. This could be scary, so I'm going to turn my stuff around so I don't fall in here.
Please don't fall.
Look at that. Holy Christ. Look at that. So what you've got down there is a very large tank. It's about 10,000 liters. And only the very top is sticking up here on the third floor, on the second floor. So basically the shubo comes in here. It gets one stage in this room, and then it gets pushed into the big tank that you see on the floor, and you keep fermentation going as you make more additions. You make 3 additions. There we go. Each time you add water, you add koji, and you add steam rice, and keep it moving, keep it rolling. Over
I had
here,
a
if you
question.
really want a bird's eye view,
there you
let's
go.
have
Yep.
a look.
There
So,
you go.
First time you add, this tank is way too deep and too big. We have a little tank, which I don't see here. A little tank first, that's the first time you make addition, and then when you make the second and the third addition, you do it straight into the big tank. There you go. Now remember, you're doing fermentation this whole time, so from the time you start shubo to the time you finish a main tank, it's about 6 weeks of fermentation. I'm gonna go downstairs now, it's really loud.
Okay. All right. Look at that.
Okay, so what we saw from up there, we just came downstairs. So those are the main fermentation tanks. Again, a lot of those are 10,000 liter in volume, really big boys. We do a lot of temperature control even in this large size. These guys are temperature control jackets. They make sure that this tank stays at a nice cold temperature. Again, 6 weeks of fermentation, then we're on to filtering. Follow me.
All right. So he's going to be walking around, going to the filtering area where we'll be seeing the big yabuta. Might as well.
Those slides of steaming and koji.
Yeah, exactly. We have some really cool slides that Keith has given us to kind of review over here. Some of them, yep, here we go. So that's the koji making, which brings the starch into a sugar. And in that tap, I mean, you can kind of see that motion happening right there. That just single tap happens very differently in different places. Everyone has their kind of superstitions of, you know, either a bag that they plop, or it's a plate that they tap, or a guy that just goes crazy and shakes the hell out of it. I mean, it's very interesting, and every Toji has his key shake, I
Yeah.
think, right?
When
Wouldn't you say,
I
CJ?
went one time, I got to make koji, and they all showed different techniques, but there was like they showed me the snap
The,
technique.
the snap, yeah, the snap. I like that. Yeah,
Snap.
yeah.
You had to do it like every, you know, a foot and a half to 2 feet, you know, down the table, bap, bap, and then come all the way
Oh,
around.
I think
So
we're
here
back
they're
with
spreading
Keith.
out the rice to control the temperature. You know, to get it at that perfect space where koji is going to be happening, be happy. So they break up the rice so there's no large clumps, so that the koji, the mold, can form on each individual kernel. And this is kind of what they're doing right now. They just brought it from that previous stage of the steaming where he showed you it came up, and they're bringing it in the koji room to develop it here.
All right, Keith is back.
I guess.
Yay.
Well, if you guys want to continue doing the slides, that's fine. I can hang out here.
No, we're here to
Please,
see your face, Keith. Go for
yeah,
it.
you're doing an amazing job.
Okay, so now we're in the filtering area. This is one of the many ways we have for filtering. It's the main way we filter when we're working with a lot of mash, like in those tanks you saw. A little later, they'll show you some slides of another way of filtering for super, super good premium competition level sake. But for right now, I want to show you these. Almost every brewery in Japan and in Brooklyn has something that looks like this. Over here, we call them yabutas because the maker, their company name is Yabuta.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see that they have at the back a really big motor thing, like a hydraulic press right here. See that big plunger? That is not how we press the sake through. Everybody thinks it is. They think we just press it from the back. We don't. This back part just helps us move this wall into position before we start pressing the mash. So that back part just moves the wall in position. And if we look at what's in here, these are panels, right? All of these panels have rubber inserts. And you see above, there's this kind of scary alien looking thing. These hoses are compressed air hoses. They go to each panel, so you actually press the sake from the inside out to get it to filter through the cloth.
Cool.
Very cool.
Yeah. Generally, you don't want to do this while they're doing the filtering because you'll end up being part of the sake. So don't do that. And at the end, you end up with sake rolling out into a small tank, and then from the small tank, it goes to a bigger tank, and all kinds of fun stuff happen to it, which I don't have time to talk about. But we do have time to take your questions, so I'm going to move to another Wi-Fi zone. I think probably CJ and the gang are going to show you a few more slides, and we'll see you in just a few minutes, okay?
Awesome.
Thanks, Keith. See you in a minute.
Thanks.
All right. So we've got a couple more slides that will go on, and I think it's a good time as we're kind of going through the slides, we'll get some questions going. Michelle, here we go.
So here you can see that when we make daiginjos and ginjo sakes, and we want to really control the temperature of the koji and how that mold is forming, creating the perfect humidity, they get smaller and smaller into smaller boxes. So this is showing that size box where they're filling it up to really control and make that perfect koji for the production of your special daiginjos.
Mm-hmm.
And these are just the boxes that they keep it in.
Oh, Michelle, I think we can't really hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
There.
Is
A
that
little bit better.
Sorry,
Can you-
I think
can
I'm
you-
having some problems. Can you hear me?
Not really. So
Okay, you guys talk.
Yeah.
this is just more of the same, the boxes. Part of the process here also is that in order to keep all the koji at a balanced temperature and humidity, they will rotate those boxes throughout the night to make sure that the one on the bottom left eventually lives on the top right and vice versa. So they're moving everything around to maintain the perfect humidity and temperature for the koji. Here, one of the later steps is they'll build the divots or the mountains so that you're again exposing as much rice to the air and drying and getting that perfect koji formation.
Yeah, it's all about that surface area.
Yeah, there's some koji for you right there.
Looks like
It
a
kind
little
of
monster.
This reminded me of like a dog paw for some reason. I saw a dog paw when I first saw this, but obviously we're looking at a super up close picture of the koji rice. You just see those perfectly furry white spurs happening there. And I mean, again, yes, it is a mold, but it tastes great. You know, you eat it and it's just sweetness. It's converting that starch into sugar, and koji rice is perfectly delicious.
Yeah, it's like blue cheese or any kind of wash rind cheese.
And you have that chestnut kind of, it's really amazing when you walk into a space where koji is being created. You have these beautiful smells. But now we've moved on to the other kind of separating the leaves, and this is what we know as shizuku. Michelle, can you explain that?
Yeah, so this is one of my, it's sort of an old-fashioned way of making sake where you just slowly let the sake drip filter through the cloth bags. And they do this for really high-end ginjo sakes. It obviously takes way longer than any sort of pressing might. So you need delicate flavors. Oh, Keith is back.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah, I think we have one.
We're trying to get us both in here.
Yep, and we have Nastoji back. Great.
Yay.
Nasutoji.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Sorry.
Okay, we good?
All right, we are good.
So one of the first questions we kind of wanted to ask, and this is for both of you, is for Nasutoji and Keith, is how did you end up in Japan? And Keith, we lost your video, and or at Masumi.
Oh, Keith.
Okay, can we do Nasutoji first and now the power mode issue?
Yes.
Let's talk about Nasutoji first, okay?
All right, Nasutoji.
Okay, Nastoji-san. Yeast number 7.
に勤めて、でどうしてマスミにもなったという長野県の人ですかとか、どうしてそこをマスミになったか。
発酵系が好きで、大学もそういうところ出ましたので、地元ということで入りました。
So I'm back, sort of. So basically, Nasan said, you know, he's a local guy. He's from right down the road in Tatsuno, and he was really interested in fermenting, in sake making. So he went to a university that specializes in basically fermentation science, with the intention of coming back after leaving Todai. That's the Tokyo Agricultural Institute. He wanted to come back, and so he came to Masumi, which was the closest brewery to his hometown.
And then
very cool.
You?
And how about me? You want? Okay, I'll do this in 2 seconds. I was married to a Japanese woman in America, and that turned me toward Japan. I moved to Japan. I moved to this area of Nagano. Exactly. I moved to this area of Nagano doing something totally different. The largest employer here in the area is the Seiko Epson Corporation. You know, the Seiko watches and Epson printers, the ones with the really expensive ink cartridges. That one. About 10 years after working there, I had known the Miyasaka family very well, and I found that sake tastes a lot better than printer ink. And after that, it was history. I was a goner, into sake and never to leave. So there you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Keith. We have another question about the yeast number 7. As you had discussed before, it was discovered in your brewery, but are you using other yeasts?
7号工房以外の工房を使ってますか？
少し使ってます。ただ、これからどんどん7号に集約していって、7号発祥蔵として、その方がいいだろうという結論で、今進んでます。
Yes, we do use some other yeast varieties in addition to number 7. However, we're in the middle of a process of moving closer and closer to using only number 7 yeast varieties. And Nasan wanted to point out it's varieties because we have our own laboratory and we have yeast development specialists here. So we've been developing different strains off of number 7 that have different characteristics. So we're moving toward using different variations of number 7 for more and more of our products.
Very cool. Very cool.
And so another question we had too, especially with everything that's happening right now, is how much of your sake do you export out of Japan? Because we know, a lot of sake drinkers are no longer in Japan. People drink beer and shochu and things like that. And, how much of it comes to the US versus other places, and how has the coronavirus pandemic changed what's going on for you guys right now?
Okay, I'll go ahead and answer that bit. Export has become more and more important to us. We are now at about 10% of our total sales a year are export sales. Now, 10% may not sound like a lot, but there are a lot of breweries that don't export anything, and the average is just now getting close to 4%. So we're over double the average for exports. Of that 10%, the United States is by far the biggest single export market. Right now, it goes 33 to 36% of our exports are to the USA. About how coronavirus has affected us and this whole thing, it is affecting us, and for our particular set of countries that we export to 25 different countries.
Wow.
And we're seeing what everybody else in the world is seeing. It is basically putting a huge hand down on sales everywhere. Now, the pace of that is different. Some of the countries were fast to get the virus, and so their effect was quicker. Other countries are later. So we're seeing kind of a rolling effect. Our orders to certain areas of the world have gone way down, almost zero. Orders in other places are now beginning to fall, and orders in other places are coming back. For example, Taiwan. Taiwan is doing, we just shipped an order again to Taiwan. They were on it quick because obviously they're having a really close look at China, and they were moving quickly. And so they're more confident, they're able to bring in new orders more quickly than other places. But that's part of I think what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. So a kind of a combo question, that pulling some questions from the Q&A and adding them together for Nasutoji is two things. One, what is the most important part that you believe in the brewing process? And then two, what makes the Suwa water so great for sake making? Hard versus soft, and kind of what we can learn from that.
Okay, two-part question. これ2つの質問を一つ。一つは製造
So while Keith is translating that really quickly, we wanted to just plug again that we're going to be doing the Nijikai in a little bit. We're getting close to that 9 p.m. point, but we'll be sure to put in the chat section the Nijikai Zoom. There it is, meeting ID and password. Please don't forget to jump on board onto that, because it's where we get to see all your faces, do a couple kampais. And now we have Nasutoji and Keith back. There we go. Go ahead.
ポイントはよく本なんか麹が大切だって言いますけれども、作る上でもやはり親戚、お米にどれだけ水を吸わせるかっていうのがとても大切なので、私は千枚親戚工程が一番大切だと思っています。
The first part of the question that CJ had about what's the most important step in brewing, Nasutoji wanted to point out a lot of people say that it's koji making, and while koji is important itself, even more important than koji making is being able to wash and soak perfectly. Because if you don't do that, then you're not going to make good koji. So for him, soaking the rice is the part that he always, it keeps him up at night. So really, if you soak well, everything down the line after that is going to go well. If you soak poorly, if you have inconsistent soaking and so on, you're going to give yourself trouble for the rest of the brewing cycle. So soaking is key.
Very cool.
Part two being the water.
水は2つの蔵とも軟水ですね。硬水でもお酒できますけれども、軟水を使った方が柔らかくて軽くて、 綺麗なお酒になると思います。で、日本で男酒、女酒っていう区別ありますけれども、軟水は女酒っていうところに柔らかいタイプのお酒ができる水です。で、あと、ここら辺は環境がいいので、水質がとても綺麗だと思います。
About the water in the Suwa area, generally speaking, this is very soft water. Now, this is relative to some harder waters in Japan. Overall, Japan has relatively soft water compared to Europe, for example, or the Rockies. But the Suwa area has softer water. That means relatively low calcium content, low mineral content. And for Nastoji especially, this type of water, of course, you can make good sake in harder water, but the characteristics of the sake will change. People here in Japan often identify sake that's made in soft water, they consider it feminine. And sake that's made in harder water, they consider masculine, because harder water gives a more edgy, a more dry, a little bit more aggressive character. Softer water ends up with a softer feel in the sake, generally a bit sweeter if you want it to go that way. And you have a bit more control over delicate elements. So you can make a sake that's both flavorful but light. So he really, really likes the soft water that we use.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Wonderful. More of a personal side of things. This is for Nastoji-san. What is your favorite sake to drink? One part. And then two, what do you do when you are not making sake? I think this is kind of fun for the attendees.
Yeah.
個人的に一番好きな酒なんだ。
マスミの中で。
いや、一番好きな酒。一つは、お酒作らないときに何やってるの？つまり仕事としてじゃなくて、自分の趣味とか。
ああ、なるほどね。
まず自分の好きな、今最近好きな酒。
Like picking one of your children.
とても答えづらいですけど、私はその日本酒が好きになった一番の元は天狗米、天狗米、昔の天狗米、今ですね、天狗米が好きで、すごい興味を持ったっていうのがまずあるので、天狗米が好きでした。今はマスミが大好きです。
Okay.
He said, so the first part, like, what's the favorite sake of his? He said, boy, that's a really trick question. But to be honest, he said what really got him into sake making was tengu mai. The tengu mai at the time back then in the 80s. They were doing Yamahais before. A lot of people were marketing them. And he really liked their style. So that's kind of what got him moving into sake. And of course, now he really loves Masu.
Of course.
Of course.
Now,
プライベートは、ガーデニングが最近趣味ですね。
なるほど。
バラ
バラ。
バラとか、バラが好きですね。
So on his off time when he's not making sake, he's really gotten into gardening, especially rose gardening.
Very cool.
You kind of imagine, have a look at that. He looks like a rose gardener, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yep. That is wonderful. With only a couple minutes left, I think it's really important that we kind of close up. I just want to thank both of you, Nastoji and Keith. You did a wonderful job. We answered a lot of questions here, but we have our Nijikai, which will be able to hopefully bring you back on and answer some more questions. Everyone will be on there where we can kind of see their faces, ask them what they're drinking, how they're enjoying them.
Fantastic.
Then, yeah.
ありがとうございます。
いい質問をいろいろ答えてありがとう。
ありがとう。
2次会はこれからよろしくお願いします。
Yes.
Yes, the fun part.
See you in a few minutes at the 2次会.
Monday morning kanpais for everybody.
Exactly. So thank you. For all our attendees, the Nijikai, which is our second tasting where we get everyone involved. For those that didn't really hear about it, we have our a couple in the chat area. We have an area for you to be able to just click the link there. After this is all done, there's a quick survey along with the link to the Nijikai once again. So we just want to thank all of you for attending today. We had a wonderful time. I think they did an amazing job showing off one of the coolest breweries out there. I'm so proud to be serving their stuff in my restaurants, and I hope all of you that have never tried it be able to get out there and get it soon so that you can enjoy it And for now, let's do
Well,
a
just
little
before
kanpai.
we end with a kanpai, a little teaser. We went all the way to Japan this week, but next week we're going to stay a little bit local, and we're going to
Bye.
buy a brewery here in Brooklyn with Kato Sake Works.
Yeah, the
all right.
one Jesse's
Natsukaji
drinking.
has a little sake, so let's say kanpai with Toji-san.
Okay.
Kanpai.
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 See you guys.
See you soon.
Well, we'll see you in the Nijikai.
We'll see you in the
Okay.
Nijikai. Thank you so much. Don't forget about our newsletter, social media, AmericanSakeAssociation.org, and at American Sake Association.
Yeah.
All right. We will see you on the other side.
On the
Hope to see everyone
Nijikai.
there at
Minute.
that Nijikai.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Peace.